There are 3 destructive outcomes that I'm hoping to combat today that can result from video games, right? A lot of times parents come to me talking about things like time management and things like that. Those are all very valid and they're kind of encapsulated within that. But for me, there are 3 like long-term, life-altering things that I want to really avoid and really keep our youth from. And the first is youth who fail university because they're gaming. Okay, that's like one big one. A lot of times when children leave home, this is actually something that I see because I see them gaming, or their friends tell me that their friend is busy gaming all their life and that they haven't gone to any classes and they fail because of that, and no one really finds out for a couple years. So I want to avoid that. Big issue. Very practical, very destructive. Number 2, want to avoid a breakdown of relationship between parent and teen as a result of gaming. Okay, this is probably the most common amongst Christian parents especially, and especially between mothers and sons. Okay, want to avoid a breakdown of relationship between parent and teen as a result of gaming. And the last one, we want to avoid sexual or drug addiction. And everyone's like, huh? How's that related? I'll get to that. My hope and prayer is to present up-to-date research, the latest in psychological analysis, and my own personal experience to prevent these outcomes from happening, while at the same time still getting your youth to do positive things with their life. Okay, so that's the plan, that's the whole aim of this talk. With that said, let's pray, because, you know, I've never done this before, so yeah, let's do it. God, I thank you for the youth that you've entrusted into the care of these parents here, and also for the privilege that I have to be able to witness that and also to minister in part to them. God, we know that in this world, things are changing, things are happening, and one of those things that have happened in the recent decades is video games. And God, I pray that as we look at what's happening in the gaming world, look at what's happening in the lives of our teens, that we would properly be able to understand how best to deal with this, both as Christians and as mentors and leaders, and also on how we can encourage our youth to make the best use of their life, whether through this or around this. And so God, we pray that you would be in the midst of this discussion, this talk here today, that you would speak through me, and that you would, just really be here. In the name of Jesus we pray. Amen. Alright, so let me start off by saying I'm not a parent, okay? In case you guys are fooled by my suit, I'm not a parent. And I have massive respect for parents and their very tough job. You know, the longer I'm a youth pastor, the more I realize it's hard work. And so I know that you guys have a tough job. I see your kids for maybe 2 to 5 hours a week. You guys see your kids for like 144, or maybe not at all. Some parents are like, we never see our kids, and that's the other problem. But you have responsibility for your kids 144 hours, and it's not easy, especially when they get to that lovely teenager stage where they question stuff and all sorts of things happen. However, massive props for you guys for being here. The fact that you're here means that you care, you want to learn, and that's, I think, one of the great signs that I respect in parents, that they would themselves acknowledge that they don't have it all figured out. And I think actually anyone who's a parent within like the first 3 months, they figure that out. It's like there's no instruction manual. I've been told this multiple times, and I'm like, I know everything there is to know about parenting. And then they're like, no, you don't. I'm like, yeah, probably I don't. So I'm sure I'll figure it out. So props to you guys for being here. I want to tell you a little bit about my background and why I'm so passionate on this subject. I am a youth pastor now, but I was also a former video game addict. I used to play close to 4 hours a night on weeknights, close to 12 hours a day on weekends. I played a lot of games, okay, when I was growing up. And I know the destructive impacts that it can have on relationships, family, work, spiritual life, all that stuff. Right? The flip side of that is I'm also a former competitive gamer. And so I know a lot of that world as well. And so having come through that, what happened was I quit gaming when I became a youth pastor. I got saved from it. I went 5 years without playing just to test this theory. And then now I can totally stop whenever I feel like it, and I can totally play whenever I feel like it as well. In fact, right now I use it as one of my primary evangelism tools. And one of the reasons why Axiom has a very good rate of evangelizing to non-Christian youth is actually because because I game. And that's actually stated as one reason why several of our non-Christian youth have come to Axiom, is because they're like, wow, you're cool. I'm like, okay, well, that's not exactly what I'm going for, but it works. So we're going to look at it as in a broad perspective, but let me just say, I'm not coming at it from the perspective of gaming is okay, and 100% of the time, and it's just totally a good thing. I'm also not coming at it from the perspective of gaming is pure evil, okay? And so, I'm hoping that we as adults and as Christians would know that very little in life is pure evil and very little in life is 100% good. So we need to look at what's good, what's bad, how do we deal with it, okay? Also, I think I'm somewhat legally, if not encouraged to say this, what I say does not reflect the official position of ECC, and you know, Christiane mentioned that, and I was thinking, yeah, the elders would probably want me to say that as well. So what I'm saying does not reflect the official position of ECC. Amen. So, also, see, lots of disclaimers. You guys notice I'm setting this up. Lots of disclaimers. If you have questions, one of the privileges of being at the live session as opposed to all you slackers, no, I'm just kidding, all you people who are watching online because you're busy serving the kingdom of God in other areas, you get to ask questions, and please ask questions when you have them. I tend to forget what, like, the exact statements that I've made in terms of like how I said them, so if you have questions at the time, just stick your hand up, I'll answer the question, but we'll also have a Q&A at the end. And lastly, please don't hate me. I'm just trying to present what I found to be the most effective methods of dealing with computer game addictions and the needs of young people in general. So this is just what I found, done my best. I know this is actually the most emotive topic, like the most emotionally charged topic I've ever dealt with as a youth pastor. You'd think it'd be like homosexuality or women in leadership or theology or even rebellion against parents. No, turns out video games. Most emotional topics, so please don't hate me. Yeah. Lastly, I'm actually writing a book on it, and so in case you're wondering why I have so much of this research and information just for this talk, it's actually because I've been doing this book for 2 years, and it's almost done. I've finished my final first draft, and it's being edited and all that stuff, so I hope to get it published by September. Alright, so now to actually begin the talk. Let's get to the issues at hand. Why do youth game? What do you guys think? What are some of the reasons that youth might game? Any thoughts?
Because the parents are boring.
Peer pressure? Parents are boring, peer pressure. Alright. Parents are boring. It's interesting, I've never heard that one. Are
stress release.
Boring. Stress relief.
Thrill of winning.
It's the in thing.
Thrill of winning. You guys are very well informed. Anything else?
It's the in thing.
In thing? Peer pressure? So, in thing?
Topic? No. Same topic here.
Huh.
Yeah, to talk about it.
Good thing to talk about. Similar topic.
Common ground.
Did you see that online?
Yeah.
Anything else? Any other thoughts, reasons?
Power, authority, kind of thing.
Power. Power and control.
Virtual power.
Yes. A false sense of being the God in your own life.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a big one. Anything else? Any other reasons? Okay, this is very good. You guys are very well informed. I think some of you have said, you may have Googled some of the reasons. I would say that these are all very true, and specifically, I would break it down into 3 simplified categories for the sake of this talk. The book will go into much more detail, and any psychology paper will probably be a lot more varied. But for the sake of this talk, I'm going to break it down into 3 main reasons. It's to meet 3 real-life needs. Stress, which can be caused by heavy workload. You know, many of our youth have between 2 to 3 hours of homework a night, plus tuitions, plus additional classes, plus studying for tests. That's a lot of work. School pressure, there's the pressure to do well, to be the best in their class, whatever. And time pressure, it all has to be done by a certain time. These things all lend to a great deal of stress. The second need is play. the desire for community and for consequence-free exploration, as well as just simply having fun. Play is a big need in a teen and in the young person's life in general. And the last one is drive, or kind of what we were talking about with the thrill of winning, drive to succeed, yearning for a mission and purpose in life. And you know, especially for teen boys, purpose in life and the meaning of why are we doing all this is very, very key to motivation. And oh yeah, I forgot to say, because I'm a boy and my experiences my experiences are a lot centered around me, not my research, but my experiences. I'll be talking mostly about this, but 46% of gamers are now female, so it's actually applicable to both genders. Okay, so the issue with this is that these are actually legitimate needs. Medical science will tell you that a buildup of stress causes spikes in blood pressure, increased risk of heart failure, acne, which is bad, stomach ulcers, and even hair loss. Okay, I made that last one up. That's a popular misconception, but it can cause medical issues. Psychology will tell us that children and teens need to have an environment in which to play. And so I will read from an article that was posted in Psychology America, or American Psychology, one of the two. I can't remember. And it's going to sound a lot more posh than me, so you'll know it's not me. Okay, it says, psychology has long emphasized the adaptive functions of play. And then it lists a whole bunch of papers that you can do. In developmental psychology, the positive functions of play have been a running theme from some of the most respected scholars in the field. Erickson, one of those guys, proposed that play contexts allow children to experiment with social experiences and simulate alternative emotional consequences, which can then bring about feelings of resolution outside the play context. Similarly, theorized that make-believe play provides children opportunities to reproduce real-life conflicts, to work them out for ideal resolutions in their own pleasure. Lastly, these other people espouse strong theoretical links between play and a variety of elements that foster the development of social cognition. In essence, kids need to play in order to figure out real life. And that's actually going to be a running theme in this talk, because it is a very valuable and necessary need for them to explore in a consequence-free zone. Otherwise, when they make big mistakes and they try and do things, or they try and do new things, they often end up in a situation where their failure has real-life drastic consequences. So that was stress, then play, and then the third one is drive. And your youth pastor, i.e. me, will tell you that mission and purpose is the driving question for male teens and young adults, and for teens in general. Things like, why am I here? What should I do with my life? What am I good at? How can I achieve something recognizable? These are questions which dominate the young male mind. And rightly so. These are questions that teenagerhood is all about figuring out, right? And it's not just young men, some older men too. Now, teens instinctively search for release for these needs, and there are solutions everywhere, right? There are things like drugs, sex, alcohol, partying, relationships, music, even work. All these things can become mechanisms to deal with these needs. And gaming is not the first mechanism that has come along to deal with these needs. These issues, these stresses, this desire to play has been around for a long time, right? But gaming is the latest iteration, and it's very, very popular, and so that's why we're here today. Now, the thing is, Christian youth tend to stay away from drugs, sex, alcohol, and partying, and they also realize after a while that even if they, and non-Christians also realize after a while, that these things don't really fulfill real purpose in their life. Any smart kid who's taken the classes and sees past the peer pressure, they're like, well, these things don't really meet that sense of mission, because there's no mission, there's nothing to accomplish within a party or by drugs. Although for sex that might be, you know, that whole feeling of accomplishing and conquering whatever, but we'll get into that later. Relationships are often too hard for teens, straight up, because relationships take a lot of work. And other things often take too much work to get started. Like, for example, one of our youth is very gifted in music, and he gets a lot of stress relief from it, but that's only after like 8 years of being a master musician that he can actually get to that point. Learning those 8 years and practicing your music is very stressful, and so it doesn't really meet the whole stress relief aspect. And similarly with any sport or any other thing like that, right? Then you have an additional set of issues which compound these problems. These are the needs that youth will experience which cause them to game, but in our context, in Hong Kong and Asia in general, and especially in a city, there are additional factors. There's urbanization, okay? The moving towards cities and high-rise apartment complex. There's disassociation, where before, in towns, hundreds of years ago, people knew everyone in the towns that they could play together in their villages. Now, you don't even know the people who live across the street from you. Across the hall from you, right? Like, this is increasingly the case, right? And so, you're no longer in this safe little bubble of people that you know, that your parents know, that kids know each other, that they can play together. And there's a lot of perceived danger outside. This combined with increased pressure, I personally believe that students have more pressure nowadays than they did when I was going through school, necessitates a solution that meets all these needs with a very finite amount of time within the house. And this is why gaming has become so popular. This is my belief. Gaming has come along at this perfect point in time, where kids have all this stress, need to meet all these needs, but they have to do it within the house and they have a limited amount of time to do it. And that's why gaming is so popular around the world. That's why this phenomenon has blown up. It's a $60 or more billion industry built on this near universal need across an increasingly global world. And it seems to be a safe, consequence-free, designed for fun, and it allows youth to play with their friends and gives them a sense of mission and purpose, whether leveling it up, climbing ranks, or simply beating new missions. It seems like the perfect solution. Except, adults know that gaming isn't consequence-free. And here's the issue. To a youth, it seems like, I'm not hurting anyone, I'm not doing anything. But the issue for parents is usually twofold. One, time. You're spending lots of time. And usually the more time, the more parents get concerned. And two, they feel that relationships developed through technology and through gaming aren't as real as face-to-face relationships. And herein lies the conflict. Gaming is one of the best ways to meet their needs that kids can find. It's popular. They don't need to go looking for it. It's very readily available. I've never met a youth who actually thought about it that way. It's very instinctive, right? They're like, oh, to them it's like, my friends do it, it's tons of fun, I feel great when I win, And they bond to the games they play, because it meets a need. Parents come in, and their objective perspective and real-world experience tell them that gaming isn't a perfect solution, right? It's not as good or as simplistic as the teens think. And so, it's actually a legal addiction. It's a way of coping with the stress of life. It's a legal addiction like alcohol or smoking that helps them cope with life's pressures through avoidance and chemical self-manipulation, because you get tons of endorphins when you win, And so what do you do? And this is the issue. Parents will often respond in one of or all three ways. Okay, and these are generalizations. I didn't want to go across every possible conceivable response, but one of these three ways is the most common ones that I've found. Usually, rigid control. An institution of set amount of time for computer games or on-screen time. Perhaps they only can play on the weekends, or maybe 1 hour a day, or none at all, whatever. How many of you guys have instituted that in your house? Cool. All right. Number two, this one you don't have to raise your hand for, so you can admit it to yourself. Nagging, or general negative attitude towards gaming. Many complaints, snorts of disgust. Oh, you're always on that screen. Kind of like what Pastor Randy was talking about in the sermon. Behind the back. And this can be something, a lot of times, especially in Chinese culture, this is very programmed into our culture in general. Don't want to confront directly, but let them know through a whole bunch of nonverbal cues, this is not acceptable. And then three, outright banning of gaming in the home. Okay, there are quite a few parents who go with this method. These are all methods of behavior modification. But unfortunately, they don't reach the heart of the youth. And this is where there is a danger. The problem with these three responses is that they often lead to three problems. In fact, the three problems that I started off by talking about. Rigid control means that at best, the youth is no longer responsible for controlling their desire to game. If you limit how much they game, they don't have to control it, right? Which means that when that child leaves home, assuming of course he's not sneaking extra screen time when his parents are out and rebelling in that, when he leaves home, He doesn't have that. He hasn't learned to develop self-control. He ends up gaming a lot. This experience is common to second-generation Christians, and it's not just for gaming. Kids throw off restraint when they go off to college. It happens, right? They go out partying, they go out drinking, they go out. I mean, all sorts of things, and it's very specific to gaming. One youth I know, he was the older brother of one of my boys, and he was. He had control in his house. His parents were just like, you should never game, you should never game. And then he went off to college, and then he failed 2 whole years of university before his parents even found out. And this is the thing, right? In university, you don't always know. And privacy prevents parents from being involved. And so 2 years in, no passes on any of his subjects because he just stayed at home and gamed all the time. Then, his parents had a chat with him, and, it wasn't pretty, and it wasn't good, and very practically, it was an issue. Number 2, with the second, complaints, nagging, and negative attitude can often lead to a breakdown in a relationship between parents and teens. I'll give you an example. Say that you had something that you enjoyed, which also subconsciously helped you get through the day. So think of a hobby, or something that you enjoy doing. Let's say church, okay? A big deal for you. Now say your parent, or your spouse, or your friend told you that what you were doing was a waste of time, or it was screwing up your life, or that at worst it was even demonic. Regardless of whether or not they were right, how you felt about that person would be affected. If you were talking about, say, something like I enjoy rock climbing, right? And say someone came up to me and said, oh, rock climbing is dangerous and it puts people at risk because it sets a bad example for people who climb without rope. Whatever it might be. I would be like, okay, this person, I'm just going to tune them out because they're an idiot, right? A child feels this negative input as this thing I like is not accepted, which will eventually become my parents don't accept what I like, which will become my parents don't accept me. In my humble opinion, even the most open-minded adult would probably have that feeling if it went on for months or years. And this applies to more than just games. I mean, if any of you guys have ever tried to convince a young girl that she should be dating this guy, who's obviously a loser, the more you try and tell her how much of a loser he is, the more she'll try and defend it. It's not going to work. This is the one danger with this behavior modification approach. And the last one is obviously the problem is that gaming meets real needs. Right? And these needs do need satisfaction somewhere. And so, even if you ban a kid from playing in your house, assuming that you can actually guarantee it, they'll often search for relief in other places. One of my youth was told that gaming was messing up his life, and that it was making him stupid, holding him back from making friends, so he stopped gaming and started sleeping around with everyone who would sleep with him, right? Like, guy or girl. So, it's not like, it wasn't that gaming was the problem. There was something deeper in the heart. And that's really the purpose of our talk today. It's really to get down deep. I mean, Jesus himself said that if we were to drive out demons or heal someone who doesn't then fill himself with something positive, i.e. the Holy Spirit, then the demon would come back with 7 more demons worse, and the person would end up in a worse situation. In all of these situations, attempts to control a teen's behavior often result in further damage, because their heart needs to be changed. And one of my favorite books on the subject by a guy who knows far more about parenting than me is Paul Tripp's Age of Opportunity. It's a very good book. We have copies. If you want one, you can raise your hand and we'll sign you up for them at the end of this thing. Yeah, grab one. It's a really good book on parenting teens. And it's espoused by many psychologists and many pastors around the world. We really need to get to the heart of our teens, right? So what then? Is there no answer? Should we just let our kids play and hope that they figure it out? No, by no means. Okay, the solution is simple. You got to meet the needs of your kids with right mission and heart motive. And this is the focus of my book. And this is my opinion. As I said, now that Pastor Randy's here, my opinions do not reflect the official opinion of ECC, of its elders, or any of its leaders. So yeah, okay. The solution is simple. Meet the needs of your child. How? I think computer games are a great way. This is my theory. I imagine you're all confused, so let me give you a couple analogies. Okay, what single invention in the last 30 years has single-handedly revolutionized the way that we do work, search for information, communicate with friends, yet is also responsible for the uncontrollable spread of piracy, child pornography, and time-wasting viral videos?
Internet.
The internet. Right? What industrial creation is used by millions of people around the world to protect the innocent, enforce justice, and punish the guilty, yet also murders millions of innocent people each year? The gun, right? There are plenty more examples, but I'm sure you get my point. With almost any great creation, and I mean great as in impactful, there is both positive and negative aspects, and we started off our talk by saying that. Our job as mentors, parents, and guardians is to teach our youth how to extract the goodness out of gaming while helping them to stay away from the bad. The solution, at least from a Christian perspective, isn't rules or bans or even nagging, but it's rather giving youth something to aspire to, something positive to work towards, kind of like that Holy Spirit example. We need to teach them to use gaming to learn and grow. And this is my key point. Learn and grow. The mission needs to be to learn and grow. Or if you're a Christian, and this talk wasn't designed specifically for Christians, but it was designed for parents in general. If you're a Christian, to learn more about and grow to become like Jesus. Okay. I believe that gaming is a great way to meet the first two needs that we shared about. Stress relief, as we talked about, and play. It's a great virtual environment. In fact, gaming is pretty much the epitome of a virtual environment. It's a great opportunity to do that. It's inherently fun, it's already engaging, our youth are already doing it, and it honestly allows for tons of ways to try new things out. And we'll talk about that in a second. But the key is to give them a mission or a reason why they're gaming. And you guys can do that. You're parents, they're children. Like, as Mel and I were talking about right when we got in, you might think that I have a lot more influence than I actually do. Parents have way more influence than any youth pastor ever will have. And no matter how much they argue with you, and they never seem to argue with me, I'm telling you 100%, what they see you do, what they see you communicate, will be much more impactful in the long run. Okay? Our job is to give them reasons why they game so that they understand where gaming fits into the rest of their life. Not as the solution or as the most important thing, but a tool which will prepare them for the most important thing. The rest of their life that God has blessed them with. Or, or just your life if you're not a Christian. The truth is that for a vast majority of your kids, okay, we're talking mostly for the kids here, they all want to succeed in life. We're not talking about outliers or special needs cases for the most part. In fact, gamers especially, and this might be interesting, are especially competitive, success-oriented, and driven. So much so that they seek out gaming to meet that need. Usually gaming guys are very competitive, and they have a strong desire for success. They know the many things they want to do. Things like make money, things like get a job, things like get married, make friends, serve Jesus. They want fulfillment and purpose. But because they're teens and they're young, they don't know how to get there, right? And that's where parenting comes in. You know, part of the job of parenting and mentoring is to teach. Through example or through instruction. And some of the things that you need to teach the youth, or we need to teach the youth, what are some things that they need to learn in order to achieve these goals? And I'm not talking about just telling them to do well in school. All right, let me read a quote that I'm very proud of, but it'll get me in a lot of trouble. The flip side of this problem lies in presenting, and this is what I wrote, suitable mission to teens. Parents need to realize that telling a youth that his primary purpose is doing well in school actually communicates a lot more than you'd think. The reason students do well in school is to get good grades and thus to get into a good university. They aim to do well there so that they can get good jobs. They aim to get good jobs to make good money, and therein lies the actual message that this do well in school mission actually communicates. That the message of a teen, and in fact a person's life, is to get a nice high-paying job. Yet that's not enough of a life person for youth these days. They've grown up with more wealth and security than the generation before. And they know that it didn't bring their parents the happiness and the fulfillment that they're currently being promised. If a child is being told, especially a young teen boy in today's generation, that his primary purpose and mission is to do well in school, he's going to reject it. And that's what's happening. dozens, hundreds, thousands, millions of young boys rejecting that purpose, which is why boys don't do well in school. You know, one of the major reasons. They need to learn that a mission, and a mission that they can get behind, is to learn and prepare. They will get behind that because they instinctively understand it. They know that they're preparing for out there stuff, and they can do stuff now, practice and things like that. But if they catch a vision and a mission for doing greater work, doing something great, something big, something part of them, something bigger than themselves, when they leave the protection of the home, that will allow them to have a focus for the things that they do, not just their gaming time. It'll be for why they go to school. It'll be for why they go to church. It'll be for why they read their Bibles, why they train their bodies, why they exercise. That'll give them a context to frame everything in. And part of that can come through playing games. See, if they understand that, then gaming will remain a fun pastime, a great means of stress relief, but it'll always be a tool used in service of real-world good. And that's the key. You want your child, especially your boys, to see gaming is great because it's used to enhance what you're doing in the real world. So, using gaming to learn. Wait, does that mean that gaming actually has some good consequences? Yes, there actually are. Let me give you a bunch. Gaming has several great benefits, just so you guys can feel better about this. There are some that work at a cognitive and brain development level. Let me read from this report. I didn't know any of this, actually, until I started doing research. Did you know? Recently published meta-analysis of people playing games concluded that spatial skills improvement derived from playing commercially available shooter video games was comparable to the effects of formal, i.e. high school and university level courses aimed at enhancing these skills. I.e. boys who play a computer game were better at spatial understanding, make great engineers, for example, and better at also problem solving and spatial problem solving especially. That was one huge thing. The other thing is, where is it? Wait, maybe it's near the top. Here we go. Most recently, neuroscientific research with rats suggests that special brain mechanisms that help explain how play fighting in particular leads to the development of social competence. Experimental laboratory studies indicate that play fighting results in the release of chemical growth factors in the part of the brain that are coordinated for high social activities, e.g. the orbital frontal cortex, thus promoting the growth and development. Play fighting has throughout history, been actually a key factor in developing an upper leadership class. That's why warriors were often leaders in their groups. And one of the things that is now being discovered is that that could actually factor with gaming. When kids play, certain parts of their brain are being developed which actually lead to higher social function, making them better leaders. And we'll talk about that later. Also, gaming can obviously improve hand-eye coordination, and that's goes without saying. There was a massive study done with Counter-Strike gamers, and they were like, it's off the charts how much gaming can improve hand-eye coordination. Okay, but there are other things that can be learned through gaming, and this is where I'm talking about the idea of play. Gaming is a virtual reality environment, which makes it great for consequence-free experimentation with social constructs, i.e. learning how to relate to people, learning how to do things in a culture or a world, right? Investing of time, sure, but when used properly, can develop really great outcomes. Now, what we're going to do is, I have 8 here. If you are interested in hearing more about one, I will expand on 2, or 3. So raise your hand based on the one that you also want to hear. You can raise your hand multiple times, okay? So it'll be like things like, see how gaming can teach kids about discipline, okay? That's one of them. So if you're interested in that one, just raise your hand. We'll go with the top, we'll go with the top 3. Okay, so, for the rest of them, you have to read the book. Yeah. Okay, discipline, perseverance, and training. 1, okay, cool. Relationship building, teamwork, and leadership abilities. Okay, yeah, you can raise your hand, okay. Humility, self-awareness. Okay, none for that. Healthy and ethical competition. Oh, interesting. Okay. Gifts and callings. Okay, that's good. Design and creativity. Okay, and time management. Okay,
Have a winner.
so we're gonna go with relationship and teamwork, leadership ability, time management, and gifts and callings because that's my favorite. All right, because there was a bunch of ties on too. Now, I'm not saying that gaming is the only place to learn these skills, but this is one way that you can teach youth. It's kind of like this idea of virtual teaching, okay? So, how do you teach youth through stuff? Okay, let's give some examples. So, one of the things about gaming is that many people often think that gaming is an isolated activity. You see your child and what they do is they sit in front of a computer screen and they interact with the computer screen and it feels very isolating. And so it's often a bit of a commonly held belief that gamers are loners and it's impossible for them to learn any kind of relationship or teamwork or leadership ability. However, I'm currently now a youth director. I oversee 20 youth and, not 20 youth, 20 leaders who then oversee 80 youth. I've also worked in a couple nonprofits. I've led large mission trips and I learned all my initial leadership experience through gaming because that was the only place where I could practice, right? When I was in 11th grade, I was super shy, super quiet, and I never could talk to anyone. And what happened was one of my friends, he found this game that he really enjoyed. He invited me to play with him. And so we were like, oh yeah, let's just like do this. It took like 20 minutes a day. It was really short. And after a while, we kind of shared it with all our friends, and then half of our grades started playing with us. Very much like how LOL works nowadays. And we were part of a team, and because we were boys and competitive, we wanted to win. So after a while, I realized that I was kind of like organizing everyone to show up on time and do what they're supposed to do and follow a mission and have a strategy and have a plan. I had to learn about a whole bunch of things like how to deal with interpersonal conflicts, what to do when someone else thinks that they're the boss, how to get together a strategy and a mission that everyone can follow, making it acceptable to people who don't have to be there because they're not being paid to. You know, how do I inspire people? I learned all that through doing it. And in doing it, I learned that I was created to be and programmed by God to be a leader. And that actually gets into the gifts and calling things. But I practiced. Since then, I've played multiple games and multiple different kinds of computer games. And most recently, about 6 months ago, I was gaming with actually some of your sons. And I was teaching them about leadership qualities and leadership techniques through LOL. You guys might have heard LOL, LOL League of Legends, probably the most popular game in the world right now. 12 million unique players as of 2012, but that was when it was a lot smaller. Now it's probably tripled. It's their world champion. The LOL World Championship has a $2 million prize pool for the first place, and 10 million all up. And I was telling them about how you correct people when they were making mistakes, how you encourage people when they're doing well, how to make decisive calls, accept responsibility for mistakes, all these things that you learn as a leader. Games are a great place to do that because they can practice, mess up, and no one really minds. They get yelled at, or just everyone forgets about it within a couple days anyway. That's one example. Second one, gifts and callings. There was a boy who was very unfocused when it came to being in our youth group. This youth group, our youth group. He was also very unfocused when it came to playing games. He was very carefree and, you know, liked to make lots of jokes. He was one of those kind of guys who was all about the, you know, have fun, you know. But there was one thing that I found about him. When you put him in a role in his computer game where he had to support another player, he became incredibly focused. When someone else depended on him and he knew that, he was one of the most disciplined, one of the most mechanically gifted, one of the most consistent players. In fact, I'd never seen anyone who was a better support, because support was my main role, and he was better than me, and I'm like older than him, and I'm like a former competitive gamer. I was really surprised. And so I noticed that he really strengthened up under the assumption that people depended on him. he needed to, he needed a role where people depended on him. And so we were talking about 6 weeks after I noticed this, we were talking about, well, what do you want to do? And he said, well, I want to be a doctor. I was like, that is perfect for you. This is the gift, this is a calling that'll be great for you because you will build responsibility based on the fact that people will need your help. This will be a strength. Now, I wouldn't have been able to say that nearly as confidently, I wouldn't be able to speak into his life nearly as much if I hadn't had this background information. I met another guy, he was the son of one of my friends. And she was complaining how he was playing computer games. And I was kind of sharing this information with her. And she was like, I bet you can't use this to figure out what my son's good at. So I said, all right, Alex, come here. So I talked with him and I said, all right, what game do you play? He's like, LOL. I'm like, all right, what position do you play in LOL? Okay, just so you guys know, there are 5 positions in LOL. He's like, I play top lane. None of you guys know what that means. And the top laner is someone who likes to sit off by themselves and do their own thing. They're very much by themselves, very much unrelated to the rest of the group. And I said, okay, are you an introvert? He's like, absolutely. I said, okay. So which champion do you like to play? So he said, oh, I like to play this champion. Why do you like to play this champion? Because he can be by himself, but when his team needs him, he can be there and completely carry a game by himself. And I'm like, all right, you're the kind of guy who doesn't like to necessarily interact with people on a regular basis, but when people need your help, you're always there for them. Does that mean that, you know, when your friends need to talk to someone, you're the person that they come talk to? He's like, yeah. Well, how'd you know that? And then, you know, his mom is right there being surprised. I'm like, you are someone who also wants to help people, but not in a kind of ongoing kind of basis. So that means when it comes to roles that are good for you, you know, you're not going to be a team leader. You're not going to be involved in business or frontline work. But you're probably going to be someone who will fix problems when things arise. You'll probably be someone who, when there are challenges coming up, or when people need additional help, or when people need additional consultation, that'd be great for you. You'd probably be good as a background consultant, an analyst. It's like, oh, I didn't know any of that. Not 10 years. That was in 8th grade, now he's in 10th grade. His mom can really see that now. And she was like, wow, that's really amazing. How'd you know all these things? It's because he played top lane. Top lane is always like that. They're always looking for opportunities to help, but they're off doing their own thing. That's the kind of thing that he enjoyed. That's the kind of thing that he gravitated towards. So, that's just one example. And then the other example is time management. I'm going to use an example which involves some of your kids, actually. For a while, we had a post-mission trip Axiom team. And I actually tested all these things out on that team as research. They didn't know it. But we were playing games. And one of the interesting things was they all showed up on time. Now, you know, when I say, okay, I'll take that back. The first time, they were about an hour late. First time. Second game, 15 minutes late. When I told them the third game, look, we can't play until everyone gets here, and we're not going to play a game until we're all here because we're part of a team, and there are only 5 of us, so there's no subs. They all showed up third game, dead on time. Can you imagine how hard it is to coordinate 5 teenage boys to show up somewhere on time? Not to mention that some of them specifically talk to their parents ahead of time to say, Mom, I have a game that I'm going to play. I need to do my chores ahead of time so that I can leave enough space so you don't interrupt me in the middle of this game and I let all my team down. Not only that, games in general are great at teaching kids how to sacrifice, right? Your average pro gamer plays about 12 to 16 hours of games a day of one specific game, day in, day out. They all know how to practice. It's just like any sport. It's just like dancing. You know, professional dancers in China practice 16 hours a day. That's one of the reasons why Chinese dancers are the best in the world. You know, as with anything, games are an activity. And if this is an activity they like, this is one that they've chosen, you can say, look, do you not notice that when you put more effort into this, when you put more time into it, when you practice specific things as opposed to just playing around, you grow. You know, this is one thing that's really that can really be learned through computer games. Now, The question is, how do you teach your youth all this stuff? Well, you can start by buying my book, available for $99.95 in September. But the short version is, you got to get to know them, got to build a relationship. This is all like Parenting 101. I'm sure Pastor Tim would have talked about it. Stuff I'm not really qualified to teach. But once you have a relationship with your child, which you hopefully all have because you're parents and you're awesome, you talk to them about their gaming experience. Once you talk to them, you can use the things that they share with you to then say, well, in this particular situation, what are some things that you learn? Or have you noticed that when you do really well and you encourage your team, that your team wins? Or have you noticed that when you demonstrate leadership and decisive decision making, that things are better for your team? I'll give you an example. Hold on. Every game and each decision holds precious experience that you can use to teach your youth. When a youth's team wins, ask him why he thought that might be, and show him how that might apply to factors outside of gaming. If they get stomped, or if they lose really badly, look at the factors which caused that result. I.e., did they start yelling at the rest of the team because they made a simple mistake? And what lessons can be learned from that? When she sees overall improvement in her play, point out how she's been practicing. Congratulate her. Help her make the link between practice, hard work, and success. A very key, necessary thing for youth to learn. Obviously, you don't have to and shouldn't do this every single day, okay? And not for every single game. If you're watching over their shoulder when they play everything, you might get tuned out. But if you're invested in getting to know your team, eventually you will hear of their most epic and memorable moments. And when that happens, you can use that as a good opportunity to say, well, what did you learn from this? And this is really where I'm at. See, I'm not advocating that gaming should be the only way to teach child stuff. I mean, you guys are parents. You know there are plenty of ways to teach stuff to your kids. And it happens through school, through Axiom. Axiom's great. Through all sorts of things. However, gaming seems to be where your child is at because they enjoy it. There are certain things they enjoy about it. And that means that that's where they naturally have chosen to invest their energy. We can then harness that to teach them things that they need to learn, right? And that attitude is how I think we can effectively really steer our youth in the right direction using the methods that they've chosen, right? Now, before I end, I do know that it's important to address some of the major dangers of gaming outside of addiction. I focused on addiction, but there are a number of common dangers or concerns, and I'll go through 4 of them. Isolation, body image issues, demonic games, and aggression. I'll talk about them briefly in that order. I have a short video clip. This is a clip from League of Legends All Chat, which is this is pretty much like their seasons for baseball. You know how Major League Baseball has seasons where they play? This is clips from the League of Legends professional circuit. And what you'll notice is that, well, it's not very isolated.
All we have to do is play the map and then map the plays. That's actually correct. Don't overcommit on kills, objectives over kills.
These guys are from Europe, from the Europe server.
Yeah, I don't have ult, so be careful, don't fight. We're going for just objectives. No fights, no fights.
We need to be a lot more coordinated.
Yeah. But can we Nashor then?
No, we
Let's get started. Way too early.
Don't get too excited.
Can we take Dark?
I can't.
150 left.
I can't.
Okay, back.
Don't.
Back up.
Can we go for base race?
No, we lose.
So what? We lose anyway. We have to try. Maybe they will panic.
No.
Yes.
Go play safe on the right. On the right. On cam, Robert. Look, on cam.
You are like that.
We're putting too much energy into the cameras, guys. Save it for the game. Keep it busy. Right clock.
I'm going.
Go for the in. Everyone off Robert. Someone get in front of Dom.
Yeah.
Oh, hit base. Hit base. Just hit base. Do nothing special.
Good game. I was a bit, I don't know.
No, it's fine.
Yeah, I think the game was pretty good.
Cutie, you're one of the smartest men I've ever met. You know that?
I mean, obviously.
Me and Polly, we wrote a song. Like,
I heard.
Alright,
You don't have to tell me.
Alright. What you can see from this is that League of Legends especially is a game of 5 people versus 5 other people. That's a lot more interaction that I get in my day-to-day life outside of a computer game. 10 people coming together, communicating with one another. When a lot of your sons game, they actually also play with Skype, which means that they talk to one another. In fact, that's actually my favorite time of playing was when I get to Skype with the youth, talking through some of the things that happen, and also pull off like crazy teamwork plays. I mean, it's epic. The days of youth of gaming being isolated people playing in their basement have kind of come to an end. Sure, those games still exist, but the vast majority of competitive games and the vast majority of popular games are these kind, ones which are multiplayer and massively so. Isolation, in a sense though, they do need to supplement their gaming with relationships with teens outside of gaming, right? They need to also learn FaceTime stuff. And they go to school, and they have sports clubs. And I'd encourage you guys to encourage your kids to at least join sports clubs as well. Or you could just send them to Axiom. Axiom's awesome. Make them go for at least 1 month. 1 month of Axiom, good stuff. All right, second thing is body image issues. A lot of times gaming, not so much League of Legends, but some of the other games especially can have very unhealthy, unreasonable proportions of body specifications and things like that. I would actually say that this is very similar to media, cartoons, and Hong Kong in general. I mean, you could walk down an MTR and your kids would be I've seen little girls staring at some of the posters that are on the MTR thinking, am I supposed to look like that? A lot of this is not unique to gaming. You really just have to have a plan for how you want to talk to your kids about this, especially for boys. Encouraging teen boys to treat all women, regardless of how they present themselves as sisters, is something that is a big part of Axiom. Women are made in the image of God, and so that's a big part. And also for them not to feel pressure to have arms the size of a cow's rear end, and like a body that comes out to about here. That's just not real. And so youth understand the difference between reality and virtual reality, especially if you tell them. Now, the demonic games thing recently was an issue because there was something that happened in our church where a former youth who didn't go to Axiom, but a former youth was affected by demonic influences, and it happened as a result of something that happened in a game. It wasn't actually specifically a game, it was a character in a game. And what happened was this character in a game has been taken by people around the world as kind of like a symbol of the god of the Illuminati. So what happened was he heard about it in the game, and then he went on some forums and looked up what people were saying, and on the internet, random people, kind of weird people, have created this like kind of online religion kind of thing. And that's what he was really into, and that's what led to what happened. But the truth is, games have all sorts of themes, right? From magic through to violence, through to crime. And it's important for, just as you can watch a movie that does these things and not have it affect you, you can also watch a movie and it does affect you. So within your household, please be consistent. If you don't let your kid watch Harry Potter, that's up to you. Every parent has the right to make their own decision. I draw the line. I'm totally cool with magic because I think Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter are actually very similar, but for some reason Christians don't. But I personally am there. But I personally draw the line at horror movies. Anything that has like horror connotations. I don't play zombie games. I also don't play games with strongly occult themes. However, games like League of Legends, for example, StarCraft, Halo, all these kind of more popular games, they're pretty mainstream, and they're pretty much the same kind of stuff that you would get in an Avengers movie, for an example. And so for me, they're about the same level. Movie rating systems games have rating systems just like movies, and so you can look at those rating systems and see what's in each game and kind of think about that. Aggression. Now, aggression is probably the biggest concern that most parents have about computer gaming. Now, there isn't a conclusion in science or in psychology whether or not video games cause violent behavior. Because for every study that says it does, which is usually funded by anti-gaming groups or politicians, you usually have a study funded by a game company which says it doesn't. So it's pretty hard to say. But there is something that we can know that is unbiased by research. In 1985, violent crime amongst teens in the States began to rise rapidly, okay? Fueled by crack cocaine. So you guys know what crack is. 1985, massive amounts of gang violence. And that increased all the way up till 1994. It began to taper off in the mid-90s, and in 1994 we began to see a steady decline, which continues to this day. No one knows why there has been such a decreasing teen crime. There has been no, I've done research, I've looked it up everywhere. Everyone is puzzled by it. Well, here's my thought. You know what happened in 1994? The first PlayStation was released. It's interesting that in the time from 1992 through to present, all 5 GTAs, you guys might have heard of GTA. GTA is like the poster child for bad computer games. All 5 GTA titles have released. All the Call of Duties, all the Halos, all the Half-Lives, all the Gears of War, all the Counter-Strikes, and all the Dooms. The most popular and violent computer game franchises of the world have all been released since 1992 to present, and yet we have a continuing drop in teen crime. I do not think that gaming is the cause of it. However, I do think it's logical to see how it might have played a part. If a teen's gaming at home with his friends or by himself, he's not running around with a gang selling drugs. And that's not necessarily a reason to allow it, but it kind of debunks the whole video games cause crime argument. To quote one of my female fellow youth pastors last night, I've been playing games since I was a kid where I go around smashing pots to find money inside my whole life. You don't see me smashing pots in real life. Now, this is actually my research, that no one knows why the teen crime rate has gone down, but I think it would stand to reason that if certain games were to trigger certain types of violent behavior, certain levels of violent crime would have spiked when those games came out. However, that hasn't been the case. And in fact, violent crime around the world has decreased ever since the computer game became a big thing. I think that's an interesting coincidence, and I think it also begs further investigation. I do reiterate, however, that it's important for parents to screen the type of games that their children play, especially when they're younger. I mean, that goes without saying. We're talking about teens, but if you have young children, they're impressionable, a lot more so. When they're older, they kind of have a better grasp of reality. And so, yeah. So that's pretty much my talk for today. Hopefully it was beneficial to everyone involved. What I'm going to do is I'm going to leave the next 25 to 30 minutes for questions, and then have a chance to answer these questions. I guess my main, this will all be on video, and if you have a question and you don't want it to be recorded on video, just let me know and I'll cut it out in the editing process. But was this helpful for you guys? Kind of? Yeah? Maybe? Okay, a little bit? Okay, so now we get to the questions. All right, question.
It's not a question.
Oh.
It's general. It's more for a comment.
Yes.
I think parents nowadays, we need to be more open now, because the entire world is changing, like day in, day out, right? And we used to use rotary phones, and people don't use rotary phones now, right?
Yeah.
So we need to know, because a lot of parents, as I do see as well, that they're really against using video games. They are against, like sometimes I feel it too. Like when I see my kids on WhatsApp or on video games, I'm like, why are you doing that? Like, why aren't you more productive, right? But then thinking back, when I was a kid, my mom, they used to do things differently. Then at kids, it's like, well, that's what we do now in this generation. Like, we can't go back to $1 a pineapple bun anymore, that kind of day, right? So we need to adapt. Parents also need to learn, is to adapt. What is this era? Like, this era is communication, technical communication, telecommunication industry right now, right? So we need
Information age.
Yeah, exactly. So we need to go into that to find a compromise with the kids and to lead them to the right way. Not saying that is definitely a black or white thing. Like, we need to find and guide them using this tool to guide them being a better person.
Thank you. I absolutely agree. Yes. Question.
I've come to learn to accept them gaming, but the only issue that I have is the cursing.
Okay. Cursing and swearing. That is one thing that add that to the book.
So I said, like, what did you just call me? You know, if they curse a lot.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting. This is, I guess, something that I never had experience with. I used to swear a ton before I became a Christian, and after I became a Christian, I still played games, but I just never swore. I think part of that is also the... did they swear at school?
No, just gaming.
You sure?
Oh, I don't know, but I don't think so, because our school is a Christian.
Sorry?
I know they do at ICL.
Yeah, I think a lot of times kids have filters for when they're with their parents and they don't often swear, and they swear a lot more when they're outside. It comes back to the sense of mission, and for them to understand that the mission for them swearing is not just for them to be good kids and not to swear. They need to understand why not to swear. For example, if you were to tell them, as a representative of Christ, if you're, because he goes to Axiom, right? So if it's like, if you're a representative of Christ and you're swearing, then people will think that Christ swears and that that's not a good thing to give to people. Then that would be a motivation for him not to swear, as opposed to just saying, "Don't swear, it's not good for you," because he doesn't know why. That's part of it. But also, yeah, I mean, games do have a lot of swearing in it. They also have chat filters, which is one of the things. You know, chat filters. League of Legends, for example, there is no swearing on League. It's all banned. It's all like screened out. But they already know the words from school or from wherever, right? And so they'll see the stars and they'll try and figure it out. But yeah, they have chat filters and things like that. So I think that it's probably not just from gaming, and I know that your sons play League, so it's probably not from League that they're learning to swear, but I think...
When they get excited?
Yeah. When they get excited, what's already in their heart will come out. And so they just need to learn, why as Christians should we not swear, and why is it a negative thing, you know? I think that might help. But yeah, we can talk more about it, and then, or you can talk with their cross-group leader and see what his thoughts are.
Another challenge that I found was more the learning to communicate about gaming. The managing of gaming in the home became a challenge for us. Like suddenly not realizing the change from playing games where you can push a pause button to being on a team where others are dependent on you, and once you start, you are in it. And mom, I cannot stop. You know, that kind of thing. Right. But you were not informed of that before. Suddenly it takes over your home and your family. And then when you want to stop it because your authority is undermined, then that triggers the negativity, the tension, which really is a learning of, you know, let's communicate what's going on here. Just plan ahead of time. Get permission before, let us know, and you need permission before you get an hour locked on the computer.
Right.
You know, like all that kind, that's a training that has to happen, but we can't expect that from kids. Nor did I know how to prepare for it once it just suddenly comes and you realize the pattern. You know?
No, absolutely. You know, one of the things, one of the reasons why I even have these talks, and part of the reason why this book exists, was also to educate parents on what can they expect if their kid's a gamer. And so, for example, when your son was gaming with our group, right? One of the issues was, oh, I can't play another game, you know. And so it was like, okay, you can't play another game, that's fine. But if it was right in the middle of a game, oh, I have to go, as experience because his computer gets locked, I'm like, you know, that's an issue because you're messing all of us up and we lose because of that. So what I then told them was, you guys need to talk to your parents ahead of time. Yes?
You could cut out the names for the
sure.
videotaping. I don't think any of the kids appreciate that.
Oh, okay, cool. Well, what I was going to say is, I think that they learned in the first 2 weeks. They learned about it, but they didn't remember it. And I think that just comes with time. To be honest, apart from that 3 weeks, 2 months after the mission trip, I haven't had a chance to game with any of our youth as much because I've been busy doing stuff. But if you know, one of the things that I encourage is in the midst of the gaming to really say, look, if you want to play with your friends, you can play from this time to this time. How long does an average game take? Just so you guys know, average LOL game takes 1 hour. 45 minutes with 5 minutes of champion select and 5 minutes of waiting for a game. So 1 hour block, okay? Just a 1 hour block. So you can say, all right, the next game, you have 1 hour. If they start knowing that they have less than an hour to finish, they can either ask you for an additional extension or they should not play. But if they don't ask, then it's just, as we say in gaming, GG. You know, you lose. So you can say that, and if you say those words GG, it will get the point across very strongly. Okay, if you use gamer lingo to a gamer as a parent, they'll be like, okay. So you just say it to them. You just say, look, if you start a game with less than an hour left, and I call you out in the middle of it, that's just GG. But if you ask me ahead of time and you let me know how much time extra you want an extension, say like they have 45 minutes left, and they say, Mom, the game might go 15 minutes long. It might be really short. Some games are really short. Then parents are cool with it. And you can just tell them up front, and then if they don't adhere to it, cut it.
GG.
Yeah, GG. But if they do it, you can be like, look, this is good parent-child communication. Look what happens. You know, one of the things that I spent a lot of time telling youth in general was just ask your parents. Don't just assume they're gonna say no. Don't assume they're gonna say yes. Just ask. And that's actually like a number one. I taught some of the boys, like, this is a leadership technique. Don't assume people are gonna say no in general. If you need stuff, I mean, I once asked a friend of mine to lend me his boat for a day, and he did. And I was like, I did not expect that. You know, like it was a 60-foot boat. You know, people do stuff if you just ask. So just ask your parents. And that was a lesson that they learned, but they didn't remember because they're teens, and that's fine. It takes them a while, maybe a couple years to sink in. So, but that's a really good point, and something that I really hope will continue to be worked on. By the teens. Yeah. Any other questions? Yes.
For my husband and I have observed and gained the knowledge of or realization that our boys do have the ability to focus when they play the game or when they watch other people play the game.
Right.
And they have that drive to do well too in the game.
Yep.
But how do you encourage them to apply that same kind of focus, concentration, determination, and drive into other areas that they need to pursue?
That's like a fourth of my book. Well, the main thing is for them to learn the link between success and discipline. All right. The reason. How do I explain this?
Because Josh, I think for us, for my husband and I, we see that the more practice they have, the more tries that they do, or the more time and effort they spend on the game, they will improve.
Right.
But sometimes in real life, it doesn't always happen that way.
Right. Well, here's the thing. The reason is because game satisfaction occurs easier. It's easier to win at a game.
Right.
Because it's actually designed that way. Games are designed to start off easy and get harder. Youth look at the real world around them and they're like, well, I don't know how to achieve the things I want to achieve. The things that they want to achieve are massive. And to be honest, no one, not even an adult who's lived 40 years would be able to tell them exactly how to do it, because the traditional methods of how we used to get where we want to go, do well in school, get a good university degree, get a good job so that you can do all that you want to do in life, no longer apply. You know, one of the things I say in the book, in my book, is that kids see tons of their friends who don't study and do well in school, right? They see tons of people who don't do well in school and don't go to uni who make lots of money. They see tons of people who do well in school, get into uni, don't get a job. They see tons of people who do well in uni, get a job, but they hate their job. You know, at all different levels, the traditional way of, if you just do well at school, it breaks down. So the thing is, they need to craft, and parents need to craft, and this is something that I think actually makes it harder to be a parent now than it did before. Parents need to think and kind of examine the world that their child lives in and says, all right, what are the incremental steps that you need to take in order to succeed at life, right? And this is actually one of the things which as a youth leader and as a young adults pastor kind of person, I spend a lot of time thinking about, because there are no simple answers. It's tailored to each individual student. But I do think that there are some things which will help. Some things which will help them regardless of what they do. Because for the most part, all your boys and all the youth of our church at least, they all want to do well. None of them want to fail. And that's one of the things about gamers. They hate failure. But they all want to succeed. But they don't know how. There are some key things which are very helpful for them in general. And one of those is relational ability, soft skills. Pretty much teaching them soft skills. My goal is like, most of them will continue to do school, they just won't be very motivated at it. But one of the soft skills that they need to learn is discipline. And they often don't see the link between discipline and success. If you show them and just tell them and remind them and encourage them even, see, you're better at LOL today because you've been practicing. If they can see that, it'll click in their brain. Because this is actually how I learned to, I'll tell you the story. I used to compete as a dancer in Australia, right? Before, I was one of those kids, right, when I was a gaming addict. I never really saw the link. But then, I started playing badminton. And I was really bad at badminton. Just like when, say your son starts playing LOL, he's really bad at LOL. And then I was like, I'm really bad, but I was really driven to succeed because all my friends were really good at badminton. So I would practice 10 hours a week, and I would train with the best people, and I'd look at it online. All things that your sons will do when they play LOL, or your kids will do when they play LOL. And they'll get better, and they'll practice, and they'll play, and they'll practice. After 2 years, I was leading a badminton club in Australia, right? And I was like, wow, this is what happens when you practice. Now, I didn't know that, but I actually did the same thing when I was gaming. I'd never played I was a really bad StarCraft player, and then one day some guy online just decided to teach me how to be a better StarCraft player because he felt sorry for me. And so I practiced, did all the things that he told me to do, and then I became a very good StarCraft player, right? And same with Halo, and same with all the games that I was good at, Super Smash Brothers, right? Now I suck, all of them better than me now. So sad. But, you know, if I had known that link, if someone had just made that connection, I wouldn't have listened to them maybe, but I would at least have thought about it. And that's really the thing. Once they see it in their life, say, look, you sucked at LOL before, now you've played a couple years, you're better at it. This is encouragement that you will get better at things that you practice at in life. That'll stick with them, and that'll actually help them have more drive. It's just that for them to make the connection in their mind. Yeah.
I agree. This is really good stuff in terms of teaching, giving us tools for managing, skill development. But I think there is the ultimate purpose and so fulfillment sense. There is a spiritual element, I think, where we as parents we can't automatically assume that just success will mean fulfillment and meaning. Right. You can be good and completely empty and just say, for what? And I like the way when you mentioned you could see in what role they play, what kind of skill sets they have, personality even, and what it could be. And I think we may not have that ability. I think it's a gift even to deduct it like that. But I think as parents we need to really and that's going to be, it's more a challenge to really know our children because of the communication and the difficulties, the challenge. When we talked about to get to the heart, not just the behavior. To really, who are they? What are they processing? What's going on? To see God's purpose even for them. You know, what is it that God, and to call forth life and purpose in them and give them that affirming what we see, but also just affirming them that God has something for them all. So in a sense, I think there's still a spiritual component that is not automatically covered by doing well and managing,
of course,
you know, those things.
Yeah.
And how to combine it and just say, well, this is a great discipline management teaching. But I really feel we as parents need to grow up. So often there are things, whether it's even anger management that affects communication and communication breakdown, or we have to become aware of our own, how do we handle it. We may not have been taught this. And I think the intensity that comes out in this generation, that children really need to have that, where parents need to learn, so we can talk with the kids and have that communication. And how to help parents, help us parents with that. I think that's a need too.
I think that's, I think that as parents grow in their own spiritual walk and as they mature in Christ and also as they grow as God continues to sanctify them, obviously that'll make it easier for them to connect with their kids and also to teach that to their children. Yeah, and going back to what you said about being able to discern these things, that's actually one of the reasons I'm here. Where before you might have had a cool nephew who would have been able to be the gap between your son and you, or or maybe a younger sibling who was closer in age and did the things that they did. Now we don't have that as much, but you have a youth pastor who does game a lot. Or not anymore, he's currently fasting it for Lent, but who knows the gaming world. So if you have any questions about your kid, I'll just game with them and kind of give you, share with you some of my thoughts. And also, I know most of your youth anyway, personally, as well as gaming, but also outside of gaming as well. But yeah, I mean, I'm definitely here to help. You guys can ask me stuff whenever you want. That applies to everyone online too. About your specific youth, and I mean, it's not like a crystal ball where I play a game with them and can tell you what they're going to do with the rest of their life. But as you build a relationship, you guys might not want to play or be able to play or enjoy playing games. I do, and so this is one thing that helps. It's what you enjoy, and your kids don't expect you to play games with them. Even unless you really enjoyed it, they wouldn't want to force you to do that. Yeah, I mean,
learn how to play LOL so that when you're playing, I play too.
Well, yeah, you can actually, there is a great benefit. I've watched a lot of dancing movies because I'm a dancer, right? And a lot of dancing movies is kid dance, parent doesn't stand it, says it's a waste of time. Then at the end of the movie, the kid does this amazing dance, which is really unreasonable because they're professional dancers. And then the parent comes and wow, this is amazing. And so the parent gets more involved in the kid's life. I know your kids would always appreciate it if you took interest in the things that they're interested in, right? But it doesn't mean that you have to, game with them. Because you'll probably never be as good as them, and then they'll probably feel bad, and then you'll drag them down. Now, I mean, one of the reasons I can do it is because I can barely hang in there. I'm at the point now where my reflexes aren't as good I used to play a lot of games, so I have a natural advantage. Yet, the ranking system is bronze, silver, gold, platinum, diamond. I'm bronze, so I'm the lowest level. But then.
Just embarrass them. It's not always.
Well, that would potentially not be the best outcome, but yeah, that can be fun. And I've had some female friends. They learned to play because their boyfriends were into it, and then this was a way that they can connect with them. Not so that they would be able to play with them, but something that they would understand some of the lingo, what it means. You only have to play 4 games before you really understand what 70% of the lingo means, right? Once you play 4 games, then you're all right, I don't need to play anymore. But at least you understand what they're saying when they're it was funny because when I first saw that clip, one of my friends was watching over my shoulder and I had no clue what any of that just meant. I was like, I could teach you. I had no clue, and that's why I started playing LOL. I didn't play games. Oh, I didn't play LOL, and then all of our youth played LOL, so I still started to play LOL. So, there you go. Cool, any other questions? Yes?
So we always mention things like just virtually, like their benefits because of this virtual learning. But I think there's also a real component of gaming. Is you have to buy the computer and buy the hardware. That's what happened to my son.
Okay.
So I think because they want to be better, so they want to have better hardware. So the next thing they want is Alienware, which is $1,200 US. And yeah, I think how can you tell them where to draw the line, where to put a cap, and say
Well, you should probably
turn it into a materialist.
Right.
Yeah.
You should probably talk to someone who knows, because does your kid play LOL? Minecraft?
He plays Minecraft before, and now he's into TF2.
TF2. Ooh, TF2 is tough. Okay, with the majority of competitive games, StarCraft, LOL, obviously Halo and Call of Duty, because those are on Xbox, and so you can't upgrade those. And Minecraft, you don't need excessive amounts of hardware to be better. Your hardware won't help you. It's your internet connection. That's the limiting factor. And because we're all in Hong Kong, there's no, you're just stuck, right? Whatever you got is what you got. It's your internet connection, that's it. So if your kid comes up to you and says, unless you have a 5-year-old computer or more, right? Because I can play, I play LOL on my 4-year-old Mac, and I could compete totally fine, right? It just didn't look as pretty, but I could compete totally fine. That might not be the case for Minecraft. Greg's looking at me a bit weird. Like, okay, depending on which game, like TF2 is hard because it's it's more graphically intensive in some ways, and first-person shooters in general, like shooter games in general, they do require a bit more hardware because lag is a big deal there. Whereas for like games like LoL, lag's not such a big deal. But mostly it is your internet connection if you have a computer that is medium new. Like it can be new, if it's brand new but just like medium level brand new, it should be able to play like every game competitively out there. You don't need like an Alienware computer to be super good. No youth is at that kind of level where that would make a difference in their gaming ability. Unless your kid wants to be competitive, in which case I would have to know who they are, because if there was a competitive youth somewhere in our church, I would have heard about it.
But that's the danger I see. It's just like when my age is you like chasing all these major brands, we have to put on like Gucci or but this is like the Gucci for them, like they chase after Alienware and
yeah,
I think that's dangerous.
There's a certain amount of cool factor associated with Alienware. I don't know, maybe I'm just Malaysian, but I like hacking the system, so I built my computer. My first gaming computer, I was an IT major, so I got all my friends to get me the cheapest, best computer. So I got something about half a step down from an Alienware for about 1/3 the price, and I was super psyched about that. I was like, I'd much rather wear unbranded clothes that look as good as branded clothes without the brand. That's just me personally. But then that's something that you have to teach your kids in general, right? Like, tell them that it's about the substance, not about the name, and that's something that they do have to learn. You're right, and it is a danger. I think it's not as big a danger for guys because they care more about the performance, and so Alienware is associated with high level performance. A lot of times when boys really gun for the Alienware stuff, it's because they don't know enough about what makes a computer good. So you can tell them they can get good stuff that's cheap.
Tell them to learn more.
Yeah, tell them more, learn, and build their own. They can build something which is like similar level specs, like roughly similar, but half the price because it doesn't have like the cool casing and the crazy wire and cable and the lights. Alienware computers have crazy lights, which cost money. Anyway, any other questions? Taking one or two more.
Self-control. This is where I struggle. Because I control the timing and it works fine. You mentioned earlier about you having some classmates before that they, I don't know.
Former youth, yeah.
Youth, yeah, and they when they're out of their parents' home, they cannot control themselves anymore. How do we
train them?
Yeah.
That's a good question. I'm sorry I didn't cover it. I kind of let a few things slip. The best way is to really tell them why you're limiting them and making sure that they understand the need and agree to the need for limits. Okay, I think when youth can see, all right, yes, I need to do the things that I need to do before I can play, that's when you usually have a good shot. So you need to share with them, all right, this is why I'm limiting your computer time. This is, it's so that you can do this. The second step is to ask them, can you handle if I wasn't here to enforce this? And so you ask them.
What if it's a no?
Well, if they can't, then they can't. But you eventually have to give them, you can just say, look, and this is a great incentive. You say, I'm assuming that the things you want them to do are homework, right? Or schoolwork, chores, that kind of thing. Yeah, so say, if you do all your chores and all your homework, I'll let you play as much computer games as you want. Alright? They do all the things that they want to do, that you need them to do, and then they're like, alright, I get to play as much as I want. Then you set two stipulations. One, if you say that you haven't done it, and that you have done it and you don't do it, this won't happen anymore. And if you skimp on your work and you don't put in the best effort that you can, and I somehow find that out, this won't happen anymore. Most of the time, your kids will want to succeed, and they'll want this, and they'll also want the free unlimited gaming time. So it will actually encourage them to be more efficient, to be more focused, and yet it'll give them a reward, right? At the same time, you can also tell them, look, when you see how when you play games, when you put in effort, you do really well. A lot of times boys struggle with, one of the reasons they don't focus as well at school is they don't think they're very good at school. So you can kind of say, look, when you put an effort into your schoolwork, you can do really great things. Just like when you put effort into your gaming, you can do really great things. So a lot of it is self-esteem as well. Yeah. So the main way I would say to do it is figure out all the things that you want them to do, and then say, look, when you do all of them, you can play as much games as you want.
That is happening now. This is the routine is there. This is not the problem. My problem is it's knowing when to stop. Because when all the chores have been done, all the things he needs to do has been done, then he's allowed to play, right?
Right.
But then he doesn't know when to stop.
To sleep?
Stop playing.
I stop him so that he can go to bed.
Oh, so that he can go to bed. All right, all
I
right.
want him to do it on his own.
All right, well, one thing for them is to also understand that they need to sleep. And you can just set a curfew and say why you're setting a curfew. Do you agree with this curfew? Do you understand why it's important? You can make links between, you notice how you're really groggy every morning and you really hate life in the morning? It's because you didn't go to sleep earlier the day before. They make that link, then they can make that choice for themselves. You know, a human can only make that choice for so long. And, you know, honestly, once they get off to university, you don't have control over it. They're going to make that choice regardless, but at least they'll know why it's happening, and then they'll give them an option to stop. If they really are addicted and it's out of control, then, I mean, with any youth at that point, with any addiction, you do need help. You need outside help that needs an intervention. But once they realize, and a lot of you just don't, oh, I didn't go to bed early, that's why I feel this way, you know, a lot of them just think, oh, I'm invincible, I'm a teenager, I can do whatever I want. I mean, that's just teen psychology, which is wrong, but it's just teen psychology. I would also encourage, and this is one reason that worked for me, medically, they will play better when they've had more sleep. And if you tell them that, and if they learn that, like for me, I learned. It wasn't just that someone told me that; I experienced it. Mel knows about this. I lost like 15 games in a row one time when I was in this time where I was both depressed and really tired. I was like, why am I losing? I am not this bad. And I'm thinking, it's like, what happened? So I just like, all right, I'm gonna take a break. So I took a break for a week and I just slept. No, I wasn't tired because I because I was gaming too much. I was tired because of other reasons. But I just slept and I went home to Australia and I was on vacation and I was bored one day and I started playing and I won 15 games in a row. I was like, why did I win 15 games in a row? I'm not this good. The reason was because, and then I realized it's because I had more sleep and rest. So once they realize that sleep and rest actually has an impact on things they find important, they'll naturally want to sleep more. And sleep earlier. The key is to make sure they sleep earlier and not sleep later, because that's also a problem for teens, you know. Tell them that early sleep maximizes their mental capacity, which is true. They just need to know that.
Sometimes it's better for them to hear that than you.
I know, I preach it. I mean, I've preached sleep twice. 2 sermons on sleep in the last year alone, okay? I'm a big believer in sleep. I've even told them that like they get better at LOL and they get better at everything. School when they sleep.
But they didn't remind them about them.
Yeah, and then you can just remind them, oh yeah. But then, you know, self-control takes a little bit of time to develop. Yeah, I even put it in a blog for Focus on the Family, and then everyone started commenting, it's like, yeah, I never get any sleep. I'm like, that's not something to brag about. So,
Also, maybe if parents demonstrate the necessity of sleep in their own life,
that's also good.
Like if you don't get enough sleep and he sees you functioning fine, he's like, oh, I don't need that.
Yeah, I mean, one thing is a lot of times with sleep, especially, they don't see the long-term impacts, right? There was that CEO or like chief executive dude who was 42, is in India, he was doing fine, he exercised, ate super healthy, and then just died from a heart attack because he got 4 hours of sleep every night, super stressed environment. And they did an autopsy and they're like, he was physically perfect in every other sense, and this was the only issue with his life. Caused him to have a heart attack. Yeah. Cool. If you have any questions at any time about this topic or anything, of course you can always contact me, send me an email. Hopefully you guys enjoyed online and that you can see my face. I didn't actually check that. Yeah, happy to answer any questions. This is something that I'm very passionate about. I want to leave you guys with this. My main aim with this is to give you tools to how to have increasingly great relationships with your kids. And the reason I do this is because I have seen time and time again how video games do separate families, and I think it's very sad. I don't think it needs to be that way from both perspectives, you know, from both sides, whether it's from over-control, but also from kids who think that gaming is their god. You know, I think both sides of the spectrum need to realize that family is more than this, but this is one way that I can help the more mature side to see that. And you know, and I spend the other side just talking with youth about it in general and preaching about this and stuff. And yeah, they do listen to me because I'm a gamer, so that helps. So I hope you guys got a lot out of it. Buy my book when it's done. There's additional information in there, but eventually, yeah. I mean, I wanna share this with as many people as possible, simply because it's an important message and one that is very timely in our generation. So.
Thank you so much, Josh.
My pleasure.
Appreciate it.
This presentation has been brought to you by Axiom, Youth Ministry at ECC Hong Kong. For more information, please visit our website at axiommyouth.hk.